video is all about how I started a podcast and how you can too. Every great idea starts with 3 words. Just do it. At least for me. Some people say to do things and they probably shouldn't do them. But if you're a sane person and you are full of great characteristics and usually have good judgment, then you probably should just do the thing that you're scared of. So that's how my podcast started. I was like, I am terrified. Who is ever gonna listen to this podcast? What am I gonna talk about for an elongated period? Yeah, terrified. But I pushed through those things and I just did it, and I promise it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life because I had no idea where it was gonna take me, but I just kind of did it. So after you tell yourself, I'm just gonna do it, let's do it, then the next part is, okay, wait, how do I actually do this? So in order to just do it for a podcast, you have to have some equipment, and I tell you, the fact that I only had to worry about, I only have to deal with this one piece of equipment and my voice, and I just have to have a great conversation. I don't have to deal with editing, all this, this crap that I have to add all around. I just get to literally hang out with cool people and talk about fun things. I mean, what better does it get than that? And it was just so easy because all I needed was one thing. This and a computer. So to start out, this is what I would recommend for any starter podcaster, is a nice Yeti mic. They're about like $100. I got mine at Micro Center. Not that you need to know that, but that's why I got mine. I got it for a deal, I believe. I think it was like Black Friday, and I was that crazy person who was at Micro Center getting myself a mic. And these were just a really, you can set, there's different settings on it, so I can have groups of people and it can still have good sound. Although as my podcast has grown, I am definitely getting a little more crazy with my equipment and adding some mics for when I have multiple guests. Enough of this stuff. So great, you have your mic, you have your just do it attitude. I recommend is first, figure out a topic that makes you, that you're passionate about. This is kind of the hard part because sometimes people are like, oh, I'll do it on how to decorate a house. Okay, if you're gonna do it on that, then you gotta think of at least 15 topics, okay? Think of a bunch of topics in whatever thing that you are gonna make it on, because sometimes people put themselves into such a tiny niche that they're like, oh, I have nowhere to go. I personally found myself in the dating niche because I realized I love talking about relationships and love, and I always had friends calling me all the time, asking me about it. I have to do a whole podcast on just dating because there's so many stories, and my mind just kept going and going and going, and all the places I could go. And so I knew that was what I needed to hone in on, and so I did, and that's what the Hookup with Heather Hopkins is all about. It's all about picking people's crazy minds about their thoughts on dating, because I mean, you just meet people and you're like, what? You really did that? So that's what I capitalize on. Enough about that though. So you got your just do it attitude, you got your mic, and now you have your topic in line. Great, you are halfway through the battle. I don't know if your show is a show where you need a guest, or if you're gonna do it solo, but I recommend using just the pool of people right in front of you. I think a lot of people, the reason they make all these excuses to why they can't start a podcast, and they're like, but I don't know any famous people. You don't need to know any famous people. My first guest, all my friends in college. Like, I mean, you don't need to know anyone with anything. You just have to create stuff that's exciting and fun. And from there, you'll kind of gain traction. You'll get people, you'll get people to listen, and then your show has more of a name, and then now you can start asking for bigger guests because now you've kind of shown what you can do. So that's kind of how that whole thing works. So just best advice I could give is create good content, and the rest will follow. You have your can-do attitude, you have your mic, you have your idea. Wait, no. This is like a game. You have your can-do attitude, you have your mic, you have your... Oh my gosh, this is very difficult. You got your idea, you got your guests. Now it's time to record. Duh, the whole point. So what I always do is I write down an outline of what we're gonna talk about. And basically I get on my computer, I look up stuff about that guest. I go on their Instagram, I stalk them, and every show is different. It might be a show with just you alone, but always come up with an outline. I think it's always good to put a little shtick in there, things that you always do, so that your followers or listeners are engaged with it. They're like, oh yeah, she always does this. What are they gonna say this week about this? First season, I always did something called That's My Jam, and people would say like weird things they're really into right then. It's like frozen mangoes. I had like this super big thing for Trader Joe's frozen mangoes. Don't ask, but I mean, every week was something different. I always had to come up with stuff. But just have like some kind of shtick so people can play along. Now it's time to record. You record this amazing show together, and now it is time for the fun parts, right? I have this audio file. Now I record all of mine on GarageBand, so I can only speak from my perspective, but after I got my GarageBand audio file, some people like to edit it. I personally don't have the time, so I kind of just plop in an intro that I just create really fast. I basically just added some music, added like catchy, like, this is the Hookup with Heather Hopkins, blah, blah, listen, blah, blah. Make a little intro, basically just kind of telling what your show's about. I think mine's something, I'll play it right now. But what does he mean by that?
What kind of message do I send?
Why are boys so annoying?
Finally, hooking you up with millennial dating advice. I'm your host, Heather Hopkins, and you're listening to The Hookup. So that's my intro, although I think it definitely needs some work. However, when you're a beginner podcaster, you just kind of can only do the best you can. And so that's what my show is, definitely a perfect example of the best I can right now with my talents that I personally can offer. That's what we got. You record an amazing podcast together, you have your audio file, now you're like, I have no idea what to do with this. Well, my story is that I actually put it on SoundCloud first, and I believe that's what every beginner podcaster should do. I think a lot of people go all in, they like get it on iTunes, blah, blah. There is hosting services, Blog Talk Radio, there's Blueberry or something, there's a lot of other ones. However, I believe just put it on SoundCloud first. The whole point right now is to kind of like hear if people like it or not. It's kind of like a test the market, see what they liked and what they didn't like. Get your friends to listen to it and be like, so what'd you think? What parts did you like? What parts did you not like? And kind of get their opinions. Don't spend money until you have to. That's the way I looked at it. I put mine on SoundCloud first. I put it on my Facebook, on my Twitter, on all my social medias, and I just expected my family to listen. They listened, they shared it, my friends shared it, and so now I had a podcast with a good amount of listeners on SoundCloud, and I made sure to ask anyone that I knew listened, what'd you think? What'd you like? What'd you not like? And then I just kept tweaking the show until I was like, okay, now I think I feel comfortable doing this. I love doing this, and now I think it's time to put some money into it. That's when you get on a hosting platform and get it onto iTunes. My story was that I actually had a producer that heard it through it being shared, and they approached me to be on their podcast network. So that's how that worked. But that's obviously, I know that's not typical, and I didn't even know that was gonna happen, but that's how it happened for me. So maybe it could happen to you too. But that's sort of the way to do it. You just don't put, my biggest piece of advice for any new podcasters would be, don't spend money until you know that you love to podcast and that this is something that you wanting to keep up with, because it is a weekly thing. And just buy the basics, just buy the simple mic, and beyond let's say you hate podcasting, you're still gonna use the mic, and you know what, you have a conversation and you end up just having a great conversation with a friend and it never goes anywhere. But my best advice would be to just do it. You know, if this is something that's on your heart to do and you're like, you're always thinking like, what would it be like? Just do it, because I never would have expected all that would come from it. I kind of just did it for fun. And I feel like, of course, that's how it always goes in life. The things that you care about the least turn into the biggest things in the world. But that's how it happened for me. And so I'm just sharing any knowledge that I have, and that's what I do have. So feel free to ask me any questions. I'm here. I mean, I was there being like, I don't know. I was so scared. I was like, I mean, it's so stupid. Once we do this kind of thing, once we kind of put ourselves out there, it kind of just, it makes you put yourself out there a lot more. I'll tell you, that's one of the biggest takeaways. What was gonna happen from this? Basically, this was kind of like the first thing in my life where I was just kind of like, I'm gonna do this afraid, and I'm gonna just jump out. And I swear, like, when you have a mindset like that, it becomes like, what else can I do? What else can I jump out and do? And that's the best place to be in life, where you're just like willing to jump. So that just turned into a motivational speech, as always. Comment your thoughts. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here. I am your supporter. And subscribe if you guys want more videos like this. And I love you all, and thank you for always being kind. Keep spreading so much love, and be exactly you, because you are awesome.